What strikes me as super interesting is how people don't want to admit to certain cultural aspects, the sort of way that things actually are. And there's like a lot of domains in this world that there is the way that it's written, the way that people sort of tell you how things happen in a sort of fanciful way. And then there is the way that it actually is. And the problem is even if you speak up and you talk about things the way that it actually is, people don't like that. And it makes them feel uncomfortable. And, that they, I don't know. I think it's like really, really interesting that sort of difficult conversations. And I think, I suspect culture is always that way, that there are difficult conversations that people just don't like to talk about. I mean, imagine, 3,000 years ago, if you talked about the emperor, for example, that that people would not want to actually talk about the emperor, right? There's that old parable about the emperor who has no clothes. Everybody was afraid of bringing up the fact that the emperor did not have any clothes. And it strikes me as super fascinating in this day of modernity that we have all of these amazing things, and to simply talk about what is still a risky thing to do. And people don't like that. And it doesn't matter. You pick the domain, right? You talk about family dynamics, right? Talk about sex during in family dynamics. Oh my gosh, like that's the way things are made, right? Like that's a weird and iffy thing. You talk about um, one of the things I sort of struggle with the Reciprocity Project to talk about the politics and social norms and stuff that happen in the academic world, and people don't like that. Um, I talk about or just talk about well, any particular thing, politics, right? The general rule is to never talk about politics because it's going to upset people. If you actually talk about how things actually are, and in kind of a no nonsense kind of way, it still is upsetting for a huge number of people. And, I ponder about, clearly things are still difficult for many of us to come to terms with. Um, and, I sort of think about that all the time is, why is it that we're sort of quick to jump to conclusion what it is that we're going on? And then, the thing that's even more challenging than I think about, particularly with the Reciprocity Project, is that there is a huge group that feel, you know, they they sort of see the idealistic way, and then they go into scientific careers, for example, and then they see what it's actually like, and they feel duped. They feel like this is not what was sold, right? Or it feels like, hey, this is not necessarily what is going on. Um, and it's interesting and how we don't address that. We simply say this is just the way it is, and you can't openly talk about those things. Um, I think I mean, in my view, yeah, I I I understand, and I'm very cautious about talking about certain things in different ways. And you notice I never really try to out anybody. Um, but at the same time, I think it's things that need to be addressed. I think it's things that need to be openly talked about. That there are, norms that nobody wants to disclose. It's sort of challenging to sort of show the inside of, a meat factory, for example, right? The butcher house. It's not nice to see, and everybody's afraid of all of that. And frankly, I think we need to do more of it. I think we need to reassure people that they're doing okay, reassure people that, yeah, these are challenging, weird things to talk about, but, that's part of life, right? Like, I think I, it's just the way that it actually is, and why I understand why, and I'm sensitive to it. Um, but I think if we're going to make progress, we have to sort of approach these challenging topics that, frankly, I think almost everything is challenging. Even talking about your preference of coffee is challenging because somebody might take offense to that. And I think we need to sort of just, you know, start talking about these things, start being open, start realizing that there is a whole world out there that, so for example, right, if you're in the scientific community and you email 100 people, I would say 95% of the people will never get back to you because, that's just the way it is, right? And so if you know that coming into it, that if you're just going to say, hey, 5% of the people are going to get back to you, um, 5 people out of 100, you are going to feel not necessarily like an outsider when you do that, when you experience it. You're going to be like, okay, this is just the way it is. Um, I'd love to change that, but that's not the way that's going to happen, right? We have to start addressing these things and being like, this is what's going to happen. If you are, not part of the zeitgeist, whatever that is, like, good luck getting those doors open for you. Um, and it's just not going to happen, right? If you're part of it, then you're part of the sort of fortunate few, and that's great. But if not, then just good luck. And I think we need to be very open with how things are, and this is going to happen to you repeatedly. So, all right, that's all I wanted to say is that there's a difference between what is told and a difference of what actually happens. All right, take care. Bye.